have your attention, please?
You're listening to Tales from the Tannoy with Elinor Hamilton.
Anonymous voices are everywhere. Mine is heard all over the place, but most frequently it announces trains on the London Underground.
The next train to arrive alongside Platform 2 will be an Edgware Road service.
My husband, Phil Sayer, is the guy with the most famous announcement of all.
Mind the gap.
And we work together daily, even though he died over 4 years ago. You can hear our story in episode 1, but since then I've interviewed several other voices that you'll know, but not know, because there's a real life story behind all those anonymous voices that we think we know so well. Over the last few weeks, I've interviewed sat-navs, supermarket checkouts, and voices from all walks of life. But it occurred to me the other day that the guest list, apart from Red Pepper, whose voice you heard at the beginning, is predominantly white. That's probably not entirely surprising when you look a little deeper into the industry and realise that very few black or minority ethnic voices are used anywhere. And probably like most white people living my own life, I'd never really noticed. Until the Black Lives Matter movement prompted me and the rest of the white community to just look up from our bubble. It wasn't easy to find another black person whose voice is instantly recognisable though, which indicates that there is a problem with how minorities are recognised in the voiceover world. I did, though, find this guy.
Capital Xtra. Michael McIntyre's Big Show starts next Friday at 9, brand new to Comedy Central.
Rio Attoh-Wood is a voiceover and actor from South London who's seen and heard on TV and radio ads across the world. I want to ask him about his experiences of growing up as a young black guy in the UK and his thoughts and feelings about the Black Lives Matter movement. I do realise that even though I've been fortunate enough to grow up in a family of left-leaning anti-racists with friends from most ethnicities and walks of life, I'm still a white woman with the privilege that being white brings, and this conversation is likely to be awkward at times, mainly for me, because I simply don't know what to say or what questions to ask. But I'm beginning to realise that it's my duty to ask. It's everyone's duty. Because, Rio, if we don't ask, we don't learn, right?
It's a very funny subject, isn't it? Because number one, we don't want pity. I don't want any form of pity, personally. I want to go out there and work on merit based on my ability as opposed to anything else. But when you see a misrepresentation, it does beg to ask, are we getting a fair slice of this pie, if you like? Or a fair, I do feel naturally there's always this sort of ideology of a handicap race where you're always having to work 10 times harder. That's embedded into you from such a young age because of the colour of your skin. And it doesn't become prevalent until for me, it was when I was 16 and I was walking home and then this lady crossed the road and I was so confused. And I told my mum. Maybe I was younger than 16, actually. I think I was much younger than 16. I told my mum it disturbed me so much. And she explained it to me. Then I started to realise, oh my God, is this how I appear to the world?
Wow.
Is this what I am? And I didn't dwell on it. It disturbed me a bit and I dust my shoulders off. I believe in adaptation. Any circumstance you're thrown, in order to thrive, you have to adapt.
Yeah.
So this was my given circumstance. Unfortunately, whether it's the colour of my skin or the stigma associated with those, the colour of my skin, I felt like this is my circumstance. So for years, you can navigate and just trying to get to a certain point in your life where you can, start to help others that look like you or sort of endure the same journey, if you like.
Did you ever feel anger because of the way that you were treated?
It wasn't anger, it was more frustration and ignorance. I mean, if you look at the history, it's these I wouldn't even call it old-fashioned. I'd call this ridiculous theories about, the black race being inferior to the white race. And it's proven scientifically. And it's just like, who are these guys? Seriously, who are these guys?
Where are these scientists?
And I've sat with some of these so-called intellectuals and I found that I've found so many flaws and I checked them on it. I was raised in South London, but I took it upon myself to educate myself. And, and I think that's key in this environment when, one, you have to know your rights as well. You have to know how to articulate yourself and be confident in it, because it's easy to just manipulate those who don't know what their rights are and what have you. So anytime I was stopped by police, which was many times growing up, I was able to, handle the situation really well. But then also, again, it's like, why do I have to handle a situation?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Why should you have to? Because nobody else with white skin has to suddenly have a spiel that they can come up with when they get stopped by a copper.
Yeah.
We just don't think
normalise
about it. We don't think about driving down the road, but it has become really obvious over the last couple of weeks of reading Facebook posts and stuff that actually this is the kind of thing that black people deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Day-to-day basis. Look, I'm 34 and I still have a hint of, I don't know if you want to call it trauma, but anytime I see police, there's still that thing.
Right.
And I drive, I'm legit, I've always been legitimate. I drive, I've got my insurance, this, that, and the third, but there's always that thing. Are they going to stop me? Are they going to irritate me? Are they going to antagonize me? You know? And obviously, I don't think all police are bad. I think there's some good police there, but I think systemically there's something embedded which just makes it so easy just to stop young black boys, black or mixed boys, or men of color. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience. I can't speak for the Asian community or the South American community. I can only identify that they may endure similar experiences, but I can only speak for myself and those within my environment growing up. And we normalized it. You know, why do you think there's the culture about, I mean, excuse my language.
That's
I don't know
okay.
if you have fuck the police and that. You know, when I was young hearing that, I was like, right, why are they so aggressive against police? Well, America's messed up, man. And then you realize actually it's no different apart from the fact that we're not being gunned down because of the gun culture in America. But at the same time, we're still being psychologically tormented by the police.
Yeah, you're still being stigmatized and
totally
picked out.
You know, as a kid, you grow up so innocent, you know, you're playing with all your friends. And I'm mixed background anyway. I had a white grandma. I've got a white Dutch side and I've got a Ghanaian black side. So I've been around different sides of my culture. I've seen the differences on both sides, but I've identified the black side. We tend to endure a lot more of the ideology of being criminals. I don't know what it is, this rhetoric.
You probably don't get that much for your Dutch side.
No, they've never experienced it. I mean,
no, exactly.
My Dutch cousin just happy to have a Dutch cousin. I mean, a black cousin, I beg your pardon. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just more like, from a human standpoint, first and foremost, it's actually sad. Don't get me wrong. I think there's so much beauty in the world. I'm not here to be a pessimist or anything like that. I like to consider myself a very positive person, but at the same time, I see a lot of injustice in the world, and it is sad, you know.
And you just want to be treated fairly.
That's all.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
If you and I both started a game Monopoly and each game started and I was on £10,000 and you started at zero, you know, the frustration will build, the discontent will build.
We'd fall out, wouldn't we?
You do. Yeah, it would fall, of course, it's frustration, right? Yeah. And it'll build up. If I keep on winning, gaining all the properties constantly, you keep on passing go, no 200. And I'm not saying that there's no opportunities for black people at all. I'm living proof that there is.
Yes.
But you have to do a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hurdles to leap, you know? I remember working in labels and seeing other, you know, people just enter the work experience field so easily because they're this person's daughter or this friend's mate's son. And I remember thinking how hard it was, the rejection, not even the rejection, and hearing nothing back first and foremost. And then just finally getting that first breakthrough opportunity, you know, where I'm in the door and it's like, great, yes, finally. And it's such a journey. It's so hard, man. And it's like, you know, then you realize you're reminded by the color of your skin. And the funny thing about the whole race thing that's going on at the moment is you always seem to be reminded about it, not the other way around. It's not like you walk around with your fist in the air and blacked out everything, you know, proclaiming how proud you are to be black. You get on with your life and you live as normal. And if anything, in the black, especially I can speak from the Ghanaian community, we're very embracing, they're naturally embracing in their nature. And you come to Ghana, you feel, my grandma, a white woman, lived in Ghana for 25 years. She felt like a queen there. She loved it there. You know, very embracing. You're not made to feel like an alien, you know? But whereas growing up, I can look back on so many occasions where I'm reminded that my color is an issue. And that's where, you know, the frustration, that's when it can easily turn negative.
Right.
My mum's Dutch and Ghanaian, my dad's Ghanaian, and they met in the UK. Grandparents met in Holland in a circus. Grandma was a bit of a rebel. And obviously married a black man. She was very much of a rebel just as post-Hitler.
That's incredible.
She got married in black, he got married in white as a political statement. It's amazing. I've got pictures. I just like, wow, brave. So
fantastic.
this fight's been going on for a long time, man. And it's not a fight as to say, we're at war, we're gonna get them. No, it's the fight to stand up for your rights, something that we're taught from a young age in society, whatever society, this is what's governed, to stand up for what's right, speak out for something that's wrong. And I think this is what this discussion is. And it's taken a long time to get here, and I'm quite surprised. But I guess 2020 is the year of everything, isn't it?
Everything's just turned on its head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And as a white person, I've grown up with relatives who are maybe 2 or 3 generations older than me. And if they were brought up to believe that people of colour were second-class citizens, but having said that, they were always very polite to people of colour when they met them, does that make them racist? I mean, it certainly doesn't make them cruel. It was, I guess, just a cultural thing or a generational thing. And that's what we always sort of put it down as and go, oh, bless them, you know, they're old, that's what they think. But obviously we know better now, and thank God. I
guess it's education, but then it's also like, there's this big discussion now going around, like, it's not my duty to educate. It's not something I created. You know, and no one wants to be a victim, but I guess we are victims in that respect, right? And for me, the negative is negative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bad is bad. Racism is racism. Yes, I understand there was a generation with old-fashioned views and, you know, they were taught a certain way and we can't blame them. I don't know. I think it takes responsibility to identify if you're treating anyone wrong. I mean, if someone's putting their hands up to say, hey, I'm hurting here, let's hear what they have to say first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then at least we can then take on and have a discussion to say, well, I feel this or I think that. At least open the discussion. But if someone's putting their hand up to just dismiss it, that's where the problem is, you know? If you're just going to just dismiss it constantly and not review what's going on in the systemic thing, then this is what's going to cause a lot of division and the frustrations. And then you're going to get the anarchy because you've got the younger kids who just don't give a shit because they're not being heard.
Yeah.
And they're going to do what they're going to do. It's like science. Like, you put people in a deprived environment. Look at this from a logical standpoint. Let's remove all emotion and color. You put someone in a very well-to-do environment where they can thrive. The odds are, they're really going to be criminals? Probably not, because they've got the opportunities all around them to succeed, right? Nice environment. Don't feel tense when you step outside. Everything's lovely. Go to the best colleges, great social groups, this, that, and the third. You got another neighborhood with hardly any opportunities. What do you think is going to be the outcome? The natural reaction for any human is survival, right? You tap into the emergency when you want to survive. Not that I condone the choices, but people are trying to survive. And you put them in tower blocks. You know, you put them away in a forgotten part of the city. And then after a while, these environments then get popular and you gentrify them and make them feel like aliens in their own homes. It is only going to cause friction.
Yeah.
You know, and this contributes. I mention these points because they all contribute. They're different facets that contribute to the racial tension that goes on, not only here, but I say in the West as a whole. Some countries are worse than others, but in the West as a whole, this ideology of black, the stigma associated with black, you know, the tabloids, how they write things and the word, and it's almost overtly like laughable now because it's so obvious that there's a way in which tabloids write, you know, to depict blacks versus whites. And there's always this thing. And it's got to the point now where I've got circles of white and black friends and we're just all sick of it. Let's look back. Like you said, education wasn't as high then, right?
Yeah.
Where we are now is everyone's speaking out because they are somewhat educated enough to identify, well, this is a joke.
Yeah.
It's almost insulting all of our intelligence.
I suppose one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you is because I've always been brought up by parents who are very left-wing, and I have to thank my parents for giving me the tools to see the bigger picture, to see people. But not everyone has that opportunity.
Yes.
And a lot of people can't help the opinions that they've been brought up with. But how do we help people to see the wider picture? How do we change that?
I think what that is it's the stereotype, isn't it? That's been painted over the years, generations of one type of stereotype. And if you stay at home watching the box all day long, you're only going to have one perception of anything, aren't you? And
yeah.
I mean, I discovered from traveling, I was lucky enough to be traveling from a very young age. My mum's always stressed the importance of traveling the world and seeing things for yourself. I mean, I went to go and shoot an ad in Beirut. And yeah, and I remember going there thinking, wow, Beirut. I mean, bloody hell. I mean, I'm excited, but whoa. I mean, can the car explode as I'm walking into the... You know what I mean? There's this image in your head where cars just explode left, right and center. I got to Beirut and I was blown away by the culture. I we finished shooting the ad, and then me and a friend of mine went out for the evening, went to a bar, and we just was observing this new generation, new culture of people partying and stuff. And I was like, wow, this place is incredible. I'd love to come back here. And I was just blown away. And it's so easy to form this mental image in your head if you're so used to turning on the news and flicking more bombs and more attacks, more terrorist attacks, these keywords that are associated with depicting one area in one way, the Middle East, apart from Dubai, which is almost like the sort of Vegas of the Middle East. The rest of it is kind of depicted in one way. In your mind, you've already got this one perception of this place, and then you go there and experience it, and you're like, oh, wow, actually, no, that's incredible. And this is what it's about for everyone, I guess. It's the responsibility of a nation to not to let go of these old-fashioned stereotypes and stop pitting others against one another. I don't know what the agenda is. I mean, there is an agenda because there has to be an agenda. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen, right? We'd all have an equal representation, which we don't. This is so embedded, and like I said, the stereotypes and the stigmas so embedded as well. And I think what happened with the George Floyd thing, and I think I speak for myself and a lot of the Black community, as it woke a trauma in all of us. It woke something. It's like constantly seeing Black lives just sort of thrown away with so much ease. And you're like, hold on, I pay my taxes. I'm a stand-up person. If someone's having an issue on the street, if they have an attack, if they fall, whatever color, gender, sexual preference, I'm helping that person because that's in me to do that. Why am I being treated different? Or am I too much of an idealist? But isn't this what I've been taught? You know, isn't this what I've been raised on, these values? Aren't they the values that supposedly build this nation? Mm. So why is there indifference? How do you expect these young kids to follow suit if you're not sort of applying the same rules that you apply to everyone else against them, you know? Yeah. This is the problem. It's like a parent telling their kids not to take drugs, and every evening they go and smoke crack in the kitchen and they say, hey, kids, don't take drugs. Mm. It's bad for you. And then they're there. I mean, you have to lead by example, I believe. Talking's great, but there's nothing greater than leading by example. Especially when you're trying to get in touch with the younger generation. They want to see it. They need to visualize it. They need to see it in action. Then they believe it. Then they can follow suit. So if you're going to govern a set of rules and laws, they must go across the board, not just be sort of specially tailored to certain social classes. And I think that's a lot of people's frustration, because it's like, well, I'm not treated the same. Yeah, I pay the same taxes. I pay this. I pay, obviously not the exact amount, but generally I've been paying taxes since as far as I can remember, since I got my national insurance number. And I believe in it. I understand it. You're paying taxes to govern a system to help build the environment you live in. And I have no issues with that. My issue comes when, you know, we're doing this, but we're still being treated different. Why I say that is I can't stop you from hating me because of the color of my skin, but I want you to understand why people are here frustrated. Yeah. Why people are here marching in protest. And to be fair with you, a lot of the protests have been really, I feel really proud of it. I've never really been a massive fan on protests. I always felt like nothing really happens, believe it or not. But I've seen something really powerful, just those kneeling and putting a fist up, all colors, just the peace. I found that so much more powerful than Yobs doing stuff and vandalizing. And there's always going to be those vandalizing. There's always going to be opportunities. Exactly. And it doesn't matter whether it's what people are protesting or whether it's a football match or whatever. There's always going to be somebody making a complete dick of themselves, because they just come for a fight. But do you feel like as a Black person, you have to be better behaved than the white person standing next to you, almost to make a point that actually we're all right, you know? Mm-hmm. Do you feel that? Yeah. Appear friendly. Be as friendly as possible. It's ingrained in you. It's like, why am I doing this? Why can't I be myself? You're not yourself. I don't do it anymore. I got to an age where I just got fed up. I'm me. I need to live my life as me. Otherwise, I'm going to become a very frustrated, bitter old man. But yeah, you do. The cash point thing, the thing I mentioned to you in the beginning of the conversation about crossing the road. Yeah. I remember that hurt me so bad because I felt like, wow, if this woman was being attacked, I'd be the first to go and jump to her aid. Yeah. You know, but it's this perception again. It's the narrative that's been told throughout the generations. So you can't even blame those who crossed the road because they've been embedded with this ideology that those are the bad guys. Be careful. Actually, those are criminals.
Yeah, and she won't have been deliberately being unkind. She'll have just been probably doing a bit of self-preservation. And there is a difference, perhaps, between out-and-out cruelty towards a black person and just avoiding somebody that you wrongly may think is a threat. But as a woman who might have crossed the road before to avoid any kind of interaction with any bloke, I'd never considered how it might make the other person feel. You know, we're all just looking out for number one, and maybe we shouldn't, you know. That's made me think a lot, actually.
There is an awkwardness that exists, isn't there?
Yeah,
I've seen it many times in the environment. There's awkwardness with certain white classes, with the black community. There's this awkwardness. I don't know if it's an energy of guilt and misunderstand. I don't know what it is, but There's this thing which I'm able to break through most of the time because I use humor. Whether I put a spotlight on it overtly where everyone's super awkward and we all get entertained, or, you know, we just navigate and deflect it because we want to get through our day and not talk about colour. But it's plain that it's the biggest elephant in the room, isn't it?
It really is. And actually that was partly why I wanted to talk to you, even though I knew it would be really difficult, probably harder for me than it is for you, you know, because I'm just like, you know, I don't know what to ask you. I want to know what it's been like to grow up as a black guy in the UK. But at the same time, I think, because I've never been unkind to a black person in my life, well, you know, that you're just the same as, well, you're not, because your experiences haven't been the same. And I think that even though it is awkward for me to ask those questions, I think it's important that we do.
Yeah. I mean, ask the questions and I guess you can give the answers. I mean, for me, don't get me wrong, I've had a great life. I look at my life and I've had some really hard tragedies that I've had to deal with that have been painful, as we all do. But at the same time, I don't look at my life and look at this miserable journey of a black man. No way at all. I like I said, I normalized my circumstances and I adapted to them naturally because that's my way of survival. I still want to achieve so much. So I'm not going to let these things be a hindrance in my life. Not at all. This is just putting the cards down and actually, okay, you want a detailed analysis. Well, here's some of my experiences, the good, the bad and the ugly. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to going, oh my God, growing up in the West is hell. No, we've got amazing opportunities. That for granted at all. But at the same time, here's the ugly reality beneath that. And it has been really hard. It has been really hard. It has been really hard watching the schools and how they were dealing with some of the black kids that have a different temperament, a different energy. And it's like, you need to identify that as opposed to just shouting at the child. Who screams at you? Why are you going to scream at a child? Look, I haven't got a child yet. It's due any day. But it makes no sense to stand there screaming at a child, right? If you want to explain something to a child, you've got to be patient.
You just wait until it's screamed and screamed and screamed for 20 minutes. But
but you get the point.
I know what you're saying.
You scream or hit a child, an adult's strength to hit a child that's vulnerable. That's completely inferior to you on a level of strength. Kids getting thrown out, suspended. Okay, let's identify the issue instead of just, throwing the child out or expelling them from school. So their opportunities just get, smaller and smaller and smaller, and their chances become much smaller, and opportunities for them are really hard. And then the only other way out is through the road of crime, the life of crime, or that sort of trajectory.
Yeah.
You can see it. You can see how easy these things happen. You know?
You said something before that was interesting about how a black child might have a different temperament. Do you think that's to do with the fact that they're being brought up by people who have been oppressed and put upon for so long that they're already a bit feisty, or they kind of go into school with a different attitude somehow, or is it genuinely just like the black temperament is different?
Maybe. I think that the temperament is different. I think that's shaped by so much. In different communities, the trauma of slavery could have gone through. They say there's theories that show that it's gone through generations, some generations, because you've got like those who've been victims of it through generation. You've got those who've got no association with it almost. I'm not an expert on it, but I definitely know there's a different temperament in just being black and having white friends, and as humans collectively, we are all very similar. But there's obvious differences. Same way if you go to India, there's a difference, or you go to Thailand, there's a difference in temperament. It's just naturally, if you break these things down, you identify differences, right? So I guess maybe what you say, it could be such a mixed match of everything, a lack of understanding, And also another hard thing growing up is, studying and learning about history and learning nothing about your history apart from a Martin Luther King speech.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Every historical figure you know, every hero, God himself, is being painted in the image of a white man or a white woman.
Of course.
What's that going to do to you as a black person? You're going to feel worthless unless you take it upon yourself to research and find out about the rich African history, which is incredible and mind-blowing and enlightening.
And also that Jesus probably had quite dark skin.
Well,
and no one ever paints him that way.
If you look at that geographically, yeah, of course, I'm sure you'd have been darker naturally.
He ain't going to be blonde, is he?
No, there you go. But you still see that if you go to West Africa, you'll still see stickers of white Jesus everywhere.
Yeah.
So this, again, the narrative, and this contributes. There's so many different facets that contribute to this problem, I guess, and the difference, you know. And I always say to someone, well, let's imagine it. Some of my white friends, I'll say, okay, flip it on your side. How do you feel? How would you feel, you know, if it was like that? You're blonde, you're blonde hair, blue eyes, and you study every historical figure is black. Every great historical figure is black. God himself is black. How would you feel as a white person when you look in the mirror? Would you still feel a sense of pride? Or would you feel slightly more worthless, I guess? Because there's no one really of prominence that represents or looks anything like you. Mm. Do you know what I mean? So these little things, they plant themselves in your head from such a young age, you know? And that's going to have an impact. That will have some sort of ramifications in the future. Identity issues especially. And then on top of that, the victimization, the profiling, which I had a friend who's, they work for an amazing organization called Mentivity, and they work with really in deprived areas, helping so much for the community. And during lockdown, he one of the directors of the company was doing this special service of dropping off food. And he'd been stopped by police. This was in the heat of quarantine.
Right.
And there was so many of them, the police, and there was just one of him. And I was just like, why are there so many? And then there was no social distancing. Anyway, they profiled him, stopped him, searched his car for nothing, could only find food, as you would. And I think a friend of him or someone was filming it. I think it was a friend who was in the car with him. And he told me, you're going to apologize and I'm going to school you on this. And he ended up, which I knew he would because he's got friends in high places. He was on ITV, he was on BBC the following few days afterwards. And the story broke out. And it was just shocking. And it was really sad to see because it's like, these are the ones trying to change.
Yes.
They're trying to change the tough narrative that's being sort of planted on them. They're trying to change that. They're working overtime to try and change that, you know, so we don't fall down that easy path to be targets of the system, if you like. And it's seeing that I don't usually get as emotional. I was so upset about it because I was like, these are the guys really here working overtime to make, he even said it, I'm here trying to make your job better. He said it to the officer. Now you've put me at risk because I didn't have any protection. I think there was 9 of them, maybe more.
Wow.
So that's intimidating. Not only that, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You might have a client across the road getting shopping. We bump into people. London's a small place. And they see that and think, oh God, I don't want to associate with that. You lose a contract.
Of course.
Because of a misconception. And it can happen so easily. I've had it where I'm standing there because when they stop you on the road and you're just standing there and like anyone can drive past and associate, oh, there's Rio. God, no, I didn't know he was into all that life or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? And it's so easy to be stigmatized because, you know, people can see one thing and they form their own narrative.
Of course they can. And also these days, it petrifies me actually because I've got teenagers and people just take photos of other people on the street and share them to social media without a second thought about, you know, who they might be. They jump to conclusions and before you know it, you're all over Facebook or whatever. And it's a very tough time to be alive, I think. It
is. But I think at the same time, I think it's a positive step for, you know, all communities. I'm seeing so much unity in this as well. I'm seeing all colours standing against this. This isn't just the black thing. This is every colour standing against it. There's idiots, obviously. There's a bunch of frustrated groups that want to air their own sort of opinions, whatever. I get it, but as far as I'm concerned, you know, there is a stand for something that's injustice, and we're taught and we're raised in a society to speak out when we see injustice. And that's all we can do, right?
Yeah. And, you know, all we can do is ask questions and say, well, how can we support you? How can we make sure that everybody in this society is treated as well as we can possibly manage? Because I suppose it's all right to sit behind a keyboard and share the odd tweet and stuff, but what can we do?
Yeah. I mean, what you mentioned as well about not knowing, and, you know, the white middle class community, they're scared to ask the questions or nervous to ask questions without offending. And I think we have to get past that.
Yes.
We have to be direct. We have to, and in order to do that, we have to also accept responsibility for everything. Like, for instance, the other side of British history should be taught in school, so we all have an understanding of what the narrative is, at least. You know, it's not about looking back on yourself and saying, oh, I've got a disgusting past. My past is horrible. I'm worthless. No, it's not about that. It's about recognizing that something took place before us. But how do we move forward collectively? If we want to move forward collectively, this is the bigger question, isn't it? I think if we can start to teach and educate all levels and not leaving out the ugly parts, keeping all of it in, at least we can all understand our authentic truth.
Yes.
And that's more enriching than anything, you know? Someone tells you an ugly truth about themselves. It's up to you whether you choose to want to sort of associate with a person or not. But I'm sure there's a bit more respect knowing, you know, well, at least you've sort of, you know, you've given me your truth.
Yeah. But people are flawed, aren't they?
Of course we are. That's what makes us human.
Exactly. So you've got a baby on the way due any time.
Yes.
How do you see your child's future? You know, what changes would you like to see for your baby as he or she grows up?
Just a fair game. Just to enter a board game and know that everyone on that game is playing fair. And I know the world life isn't fair, but I'm talking more from a standpoint, a social standpoint, knowing that, you know, you're not going to be treated any different because you look like this. This is what I would like, you know, just fairness. Who wants to sit there talking about race? I don't want to do it. Unfortunately, I'm always reminded about it, but I don't want to do it. It's not something I take so much joy in. If anything, it's the opposite. But it has to be discussed. So for me, I just want a fair game for my child. I'm not here to impose my ideologies. I'm here to just give them the tools they can to navigate and find their own sort of path. My mum always told me it's about raise your kids to think for themselves, you know. It's so easy to enforce your own views, enforce your own political ideologies. You have your own opinion, that's yours. You know, you have your own brain, you have your own eyes, form your own perception. But let me give you the best tools you can in order to navigate through this obstacle course, if you like, which can be a beautiful, beautiful, incredible experience. Life. I love life. I really enjoy it. I enjoy setting targets, achieving goals. I enjoy new challenges, being thrown in situations. I enjoy being told I can't do something because I know I can and I'll go and do it. In a weird way, I've almost really loved the whole sort of having to work 10 times harder sort of mentality. I know it's not right, but I guess everything's sweeter for me. I mean, I always think in a collective way, personally. I like to see my neighbours win, you know? I like to see us all win. Who doesn't want to be happy?
Exactly.
But yeah, there needs to be more representation. But again, it comes so deep within. It needs the education needs to be there. And when I said that I don't want to have to educate, you know, I'll always point people in the right direction if they want to know, you know? I'm never going to turn anyone away. But I don't think it's my life duty to go and educate a world. We're here for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have to make choices. Those who seek, enlighten. I would love to see new stories now. It's 2020.
Yes.
Time to change the narrative, you know, for everyone and make everyone just feel like they're a part of something that they contribute to. But I think you have a much happier society when everyone feels, those who contribute to it feel like they are a part of it and not that they're not on the outside of it, you know?
That
Always
makes
trying to get in.
Huge amounts of sense.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you. Every time you say something, I think, oh God, that'd be a really good sentence to end on. And then you say something else.
Because there's so much to say. And I've never spoken about it because I've never known how to approach it. And when, like I said, this thing unlocked a trauma where you couldn't not stop speaking about it. And I noticed it with others in my community, in the Black community that I know. Just can't stop speaking about it now. They're frustrated. Now it's reached tipping point.
Yeah.
And those who don't understand, because there are a lot that are just like, I don't get it. They really have to dig deep then. Because if I don't understand something, I'm going to if I care, I'll look deeper into trying to understand it. You know, and I love the guy, I think his name's Patrick, the Black man who helped the right wing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was incredible.
It's just,
and wonderful.
It's beautiful. Yeah, a lesson to humanity.
Yes. Because
Like-
it was a human helping another human who was
Right,
hurt.
first and foremost, put your
Yeah.
differences aside.
Yeah.
Educate yourself and look at that symbol. That, for me, represents everything, you know? That's
And
the
wouldn't
way
it
we
be
have.
wonderful if it turns out that the guy that he helped saw what he was fighting against in a very different light and learned from that and
Yeah.
changed his ways because of it? That would be an amazing story if that
Of
happened.
course it would, man. Of course it would. Who wants to be frustrated, hating people? I mean, if you can change that, wow. Like, who wouldn't want a more comfortable environment to live in?
Exactly.
Right? Our destination's death. We're all heading to death at one point. But can we not make that destination as comfortable as possible? One must adapt. And I spoke about that at the very start of this. You have to adapt. In order to adapt, you have to learn to accept as well. You know, you have to accept the reality of what is. Some will fight against it. Others will accept and adapt it. So accept that we live in a multicultural society here. Let them feel a part of this society too. And I'm sure, before you go, I wanted to make a quick point as well. Even football. Like, I'm a football fan. I'm not diehard, but I love football.
Yeah.
And I found this year, I think it was the World Cup. For the first time, I found it really comfortable to support England.
Really?
Yeah, because I was always made to feel I can't support it. The associations with St. George's flag, the associations with the right-wing thugs. And I don't know, there was this thing, and I asked a few others about this, and they're like, yeah, there's that thing where, you know, if Ghana are playing or Nigeria, you're naturally going to defect to support them because, you know, they represent the blackness. But then I saw England team this time round, I saw so many young black and mixed players.
Yes.
And I felt for the first time, it felt comfortable. And collectively doing that and supporting England, watching England, it felt so good. I always love it when Euros or World Cup comes around because as much as it can often be a distraction to some of the stuff that needs to be addressed, it's a great time where people actually come together and
Yes,
it's
they do.
actually so bloody pleasant. It's just so it's like
Just
New Year's
for a
Eve.
couple of weeks.
I know, right? It's so pleasant. It's almost like a sort of a taster of what the world could be if we had enough respect for one another on the pitch. And whether it's a white man or a green man who scores a goal, everyone cheers and celebrates together and hugs you, hug strangers.
Exactly.
And for that one moment, it's like, look, we're human. How does that feel? It's cool, isn't it? You don't even think twice because he's a black man or an Asian man. You're hugging him. You're hugging him because you're both supporting the same cause, and we happen to score a goal and we want to collectively share that love. And it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should that not be a lesson for all of us?
It should be. And that's what irritates the shit out of me is seeing all these beer-bellied thugs with their pints and their England tattoos and stuff. And they'll have been cheering on the likes of Rashford, you know.
Of course
in the
they would have.
You know.
That's what makes the argument so silly. It's
I
like you
know.
can't. It's not give and take, man. Would you're gonna support the guy who scores the most goals for your team all season and keeps you happy, or are you gonna call him a monkey? What? Can we pick a lane? It's funny now because even the monkey thing used to bother me so much. Now it doesn't bother me because I actually like monkeys. I think monkeys are great.
Monkeys are
I think
cool.
monkeys are so intelligent. I think we've got to stop almost giving attention to that.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously this thing of kick racism out of football, but it's almost like we give attention to it and put a spotlight on it. It's almost like it makes it something. And obviously, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be misquoted here. It definitely exists and it needs to be removed. But if an idiot is standing across the road arguing with you, do you cross the road and argue with the idiot? You bring yourself down to that level, don't you? If you, for instance, own a bar and you know there's a troublemaker, you keep them out of it, don't you? Because you know that guy might start something. It's the same like anything else. Troublemakers, you bar them from experiencing these things that give them joy, you know? Why do you hate? What is the problem? We almost need to give the attention here. Let's dig deeper here. It's not really about Britain first, is it? You know, let's be honest. We need to dig deeper here and actually identify what the frustration is. Is this a forgotten portion of society that also feels left out? And it's ironic. It's like it's the same fight in a weird way, but yet we're pit against each other like animals. And it's like, well, what is hate? Hate comes from a place. In order for you to be hate, you need to identify there's trauma there, there's issues, there's often feelings of neglect and alienation. There's things that you can identify. If you're a psychiatrist, you'll be able to identify key things quickly.
Yeah.
So these are things that need to be addressed, you know? Instead of entertaining just hate, I'm not here to entertain any of these super right hate groups. But at the same time, it's almost like, okay, what is your real issue? Because immigration's not enough. A lot of this country was built on foreign hands and foreign labor. You know, if it's just general hate because you don't like something because of the colour of their skin, and you need to go and educate yourself a bit more, you might change your views.
Yeah.
Can't say for everyone.
No, but it'd be good to think that people would, wouldn't it? Especially the guy that was carried to safety.
I'm sure he'd change his mentality.
I hope so.
I'm sure he will. To be saved like that in a situation where he could have easily been lost his life because of that. I mean, if you ain't changed because of that, then there's no saving you.
No.
I do believe in the generation, the next generation. You know, they often get stick for being socialites. They're just on social media doing social rubbish or whatever. But I think they've got a very strong mouth. I think they have.
Hey, believe me, I've got 2 15-year-olds. I know exactly how strong their mouths are.
I love it. Speak up, man. Otherwise, or stay silent. I mean, you speak up, you get heard, right?
Absolutely.
I like it. I'm enjoying it. I think the kids are. I think the kids we could learn a lot from the younger generations.
Oh well, you'll be spending a lot of time hanging around primary schools for the next few years.
I know, right?
And not in a weird way.
I'm about to. I'm meant to enter that realm. Yeah, definitely. No, but yeah, it has been a pleasure to talk about these things and discuss.
Good.
You know,
yeah, it's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you.
Someone once said to me, you know, when Hitler was committing his atrocities. Someone once said to me, Hitler was bad, but those who stood by and allowed it to happen, weren't they just as bad? Mm-hmm. And it changed my whole mindset because it's so easy to see something taking place and go, oh, I'm not getting involved in that. And I get that to a certain degree. But at the same time, it's like if we just sit there silent, I mean, how are we going to feel when we, you know, as we get older and we you know, there's days where we just sit staring into space with so much regret because we didn't speak out when we felt we should have as human beings first.
You've been listening to Tales from the Tannoy with Elinor Hamilton and Rio Attoh-Wood, with music from Beats Bakery. This podcast was produced by Carl Svensson from Tadar Media.